Popularly, this particular conference of parties is called the Finance COP because there's a lot at stake in terms of decisions that are expected to be taken. And as all of us know, financing is very critical to deal with our ability to minimize the negative impacts of climate change over a period of time, whether it's mitigation, whether it is adaptation, whether it is securing the livelihoods and lives of people due to loss and damage. This COP is also important because it is going to be operationalizing a relatively new element of work program under the term what is called loss and damage. And of course, the decisions related to loss and damage, or the discussions on loss and damage, has been on for several years. But certainly the operationalization of this fund is where there is going to be a lot of attention. The third discussion is related to an extent assessing the ambition levels that countries are going to set for themselves on a number of issues that are relevant to climate change, whether it is reducing the greenhouse gas emissions or increasing the adaptation preparedness of countries at different levels, national, subnational, and local levels. Countries are going to be looking at maximizing the use of renewables like solar, photovoltaic cells, and also the wind energy, for example. And even if 100% of their commitments are to be realized and met by 2030, for example, we are only looking at a reduction of or a contribution of these renewable energy sources for reducing emissions only by about 27%. So certainly the focus on emission reduction is something which needs to receive a lot of attention. Remember, the timeline that countries have set for themselves for achieving a lot of these targets is just around the corner. And even if you're going to be extending this timeline by another few years, still the ambition levels are not adequate, and the expectation is that through the nationally determined contributions, the updates that countries are currently undertaking, they'll make commitments to enhance the focus, enhance the investments and actions related to reducing emissions. So the emissions gap report is more a kind of a wake-up call, is a kind of a clarion call for countries to consider what is being done, but also to help them set certain targets and make certain decisions where it is just not a decision that is made at the COP29, but it is backed up by capacities, backed up by technologies, backed up by finance, and also the political commitment that is required for countries to achieve the emission targets. COP29 that is happening in Baku in Azerbaijan is going to be looking at operationalizing the fund. So which means how much of funds are going to be made available. And if you look at the numbers as of today, the amount of money that is made available for the loss and damage fund is about $702 million. And compared with the requirement is definitely much less. So the first focus of the discussion is how countries can essentially increase or attract more funding into the loss and damage fund. The second part of it is also accessing the funds, using the funds, and also putting in systems for reporting and monitoring on what actions are being undertaken using the fund or in support of implementation of the fund. So a lot of issues at stake in Baku for loss and damage, but certainly for a number of developing countries, a number of countries that are looking forward to receiving support and assistance using the loss and damage fund, the critical and most important element is what kind of support they'll be able to receive to enhance their ability to deal with loss and damage. Because as I mentioned, the discussions on loss and damage are beyond adaptation measures, beyond mitigation measures. Many of us do understand that cities and urban dwelling creates both opportunities but also challenges when countries are trying to deal with a number of issues related to climate change. Essentially in the context of mitigation, also in the context of adaptation. The second element of it is also the increasing urbanization, semi-urbanization, and also the way countries are focusing on ensuring that they have cities, urban dwellings that are smart, that are also livable. Also are looking at what could be the elements of policy alignment and policy coherence that they should have when we are looking at managing cities, managing urban entities, managing the population that lives in the urban areas.